The Iowa Hawkeyes get a much needed victory, 71-59 over the Minnesota Gophers, in a win that Iowa had to have, not because of a opportunity at a marquee victory. We know this is not going to, I guess, help them from a marquee victory standpoint, but they are going to avoid a bad loss. This would have been a bad loss, and Iowa came out in that second half ready, primed, and took care of business against a feisty Minnesota Golden Gopher team that you got to remember. This is a team who's competed against the likes of almost everyone in the Big Ten. They've gotten blown out a couple times, but this is a very competitive Minnesota team with a first-year head coach in Ben Johnson. We will be joined momentarily by Coach Gary Close, who is actually at the game today. So he'll join us here in a moment. Our line is open. Actually, let's hold off on the phone calls, folks, because Coach Close is going to be using the line. Didn't mean to give you false advertising there. So he's going to be using the line, and we'll open it up for any calls after that. Of course, the Iowa women about to begin on BTN as well up in Ann Arbor against the possibly the best team in the Big Ten in Michigan. Good to see a few here so far today. See Jared on here. Appreciate Gary being here. And All Thumbs says, how about that defense? First time I've said that in Big Ten play this year. The defense was good in the second half. It was not good in the first half. All right. It was not good in the first half. I think we can all admit that if we just watch the game. That's not a great Minnesota offense. I think they rank, as far as points per game, sort of middle of the pack, slightly lower middle. I want to say they rank 9th in the Big Ten in total points per game. Let me corroborate that, because that is a unique stat here. Let me grab that while we're waiting for Gary. Yes, so this is, I'm looking at overall statistics here. Yeah, Minnesota ranks 9th in the Big Ten. And for some reason, I don't have access to the conference only stats. But the bottom line is that was a good second half as far as defense is concerned. Minnesota was also just out of sorts. I want to get Gary's opinion on this, because I know the Big Ten Network is heaping a lot of praise on Iowa for its second half defense, and I'm not trying to imply that they didn't play well defensively in that second half. I think I led with that. They did play exceptional defense in that second half. I will say this, though. Minnesota just was all out of whack offensively. I didn't think Minnesota attacked the zone very well, settled for quick shots, and just didn't attack the zone from a fundamental standpoint, and fell for the trap, so to speak. So Minnesota just kind of played itself out of. Iowa got hot, and Minnesota helped the cause by playing itself out on the offensive end in that second half. Brad brings up a very valid point, and I'm sure this is going to be a bit of a theme this afternoon, and we can continue to talk about this. Where was Joe Toussaint? I have no idea. Tom Kakert reported prior to the game that Joe Toussaint was not dinged up. So if there's any question right now that Joe Toussaint is hurt, according to Tom Kakert, and again, I don't know what his source on this is. I have not been told anything. Not that anybody's got any allegiance to give me some inside information, but I don't believe Joe Toussaint was hurt. So he sits for Tony Perkins, and Jordan Bohannon draws the start at point guard. I was critical of it at the start, because to me, Joe Toussaint has been one of Iowa's more consistent defenders all year. I would love to get everybody else's thoughts on this. Again, we'll get Gary's thoughts in a moment. But the bottom line is Iowa got the job done with that lineup, and Jordan Bohannon played well. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say he was great, but listen, I've been critical of Jordan. We've all been critical of Jordan. We're frustrated at times because he does have deficiencies in his game. He's not a perfect player. He's given a lot to this program. We knock him for his defense. A lot of it's just lack of athleticism. And in the past 5 years, at times, I have knocked Jordan Bohannon for what I have perceived to be less than stellar effort on the defensive end. And right now, I'm seeing really good effort, a really good energy level from Jordan Bohannon on that end. And he needs to be giving him that. If he's healthy, as a sixth-year senior, he's taking minutes away from Joe Toussaint, Tony Perkins, Peyton Sandfort, whoever. He's got to be working his tail off on the defensive end, because he does have deficiencies that he's trying to make up for. And honestly, at this point, I don't know why Joe Toussaint was sat, but Jordan is playing hard enough defensively that I don't see sitting him right now. If you're going to make a change, I wouldn't think I would think the change would be Jordan. So I guess what I'm saying is I really have not been advocating for a change other than I had talked about in the past, Chris Murray. He's kind of been up and down, but at times I've perceived that he possibly would be better suited for the starting lineup. But as Gary Close has said, and I know Fran has said it, what really matters is who gets the most minutes. At the same time, it's clear that Iowa felt there was a need in the starting lineup because it made a change. So is it something personal going on with Joe Toussaint? Is it something physical that nobody else knows about? That's possible. I just don't know if that's the case at this point. All right. I'm going to get to a couple other comments here. Again, Gary Close will be with us here soon. The Real Hayden says, Keegan Murray said he took guarding Battle personally. Battle held to 2 points, 4 fouls. Almost all of that is a reflection of Keegan's impact. Absolutely. This was one of the more complete performances, quite possibly, and you may laugh at this because there have been a lot of them. This quite possibly was Keegan Murray's best performance of his Iowa career, because this was not only 24 points and 15 boards. This was 24 points and 15 boards with stellar defense on Minnesota's best player. And if they can get that out of Keegan Murray every night, not that he hasn't been playing good defense, but if they can get Keegan Murray to routinely match up against the best opposing player and use his length and use his athleticism to stifle what was I don't remember what Battle had against Iowa last month, but it was somewhere close to 20 points, and it kept Minnesota in that game up in Minneapolis. You're right, Real Hayden. I mean, absolutely stellar performance from Keegan Murray on both ends. Patrick McCaffrey with 18 points and 7 boards. Those 7 rebounds, that's the big story for me. I've kind of always felt like Patrick was a better rebounder than he was showing, possibly a sign that maybe he's starting to turn a corner and getting a bit more aggressive on the boards. They did get out rebounded tonight, but it was close, 40-38. That's going to continue to be a struggle. But if you can at least be even, if you can play even in the rebounding category, Iowa's going to be in every game down the stretch. Eric, we needed this game for confidence. I mean, they just needed this game to avoid a bad loss. But I agree with you, Eric. But man, this would have been a quad 3 loss, folks. This would have been a quad 3 loss. So in other words, in layman's terms, a bad loss. A bad loss. You don't lose to Minnesota, who's probably one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the Big Ten. You do not lose to them at home and expect to make the tournament, especially in February. You just can't do that. You can't give up that, especially when you lose. You just lost to Penn State on the road. You could not afford to give up this game, and Iowa took care of business. Gary, thank you. Yes, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button. Appreciate the reminder there from Gary. We'll pop that up here a moment throughout the show this afternoon. Brian says defense in the second half won the game. Mike, still disappointed Iowa didn't get to play Ohio State. Was so looking forward to your breakdown. Well, hopefully we get that game rescheduled, Mike. I don't know when it's going to be rescheduled. Right now, Iowa has no openings on the schedule, right? They're going to be playing every 3 to 4 days until, March 10th. So I don't know when it will be rescheduled. Hopefully it will be rescheduled. But yeah, that was disappointing. But again, that it was a record winter event across much of the country. And then when you have plane malfunctioning, it's understandable. But yeah, certainly disappointing. But here's the deal, folks. I want to address that Ohio State game here for a second. I was kind of mulling this over in my brain this week. It actually might be in Iowa's favor, Mike, that Iowa doesn't play that game. Because if you think about the situation with Ohio State being a team that, first of all, playing at home where they're excellent. I don't believe they've lost at home all year. I'd have to look at their schedule again, but I don't think Ohio State has lost at home all year. Of course, they beat Duke at home. All right. We all remember that game. So that's a tall order to go into Columbus and beat that team. So would you rather 9-11, including a loss to Ohio State on the road, or would you rather 9-10 in the conference and not play that game? I'd rather 9-10. 9-10 looks better to the committee than 9-11. It doesn't give you an opportunity to lose. Now, you could say you could look at it from the other perspective as well. It doesn't give them an opportunity for a marquee victory. They're going to have other opportunities. Okay, they get Michigan State. They get Michigan twice. I know Michigan's not necessarily what they've been, but you went on the road at Ann Arbor. That's a really good win. They're going to have an opportunity. And I still stand by what I've said over and over again. I think this team is tourney bound right now. They've got to win 3 straight, including today. They've started it with the win against Minnesota. They got to beat Maryland on the road, although it's not as important as the Nebraska game. But again, those 3 games, they can win those 3 games and get ahead of 500 in the conference. Then you're looking, at least you're ahead of the curve, so to speak, and they're in good position. I think we've got Coach Gary Close on the phone. Gary, can you hear me?
Yeah, live from Carver Hawkeye.
Coach, it's good to hear your voice this afternoon. And first of all, let's kind of get a report about the crowd. What was the crowd like on a Sunday afternoon in Iowa City?
Terrific. Yeah, they're very into it, and I think it helped, especially in the second half. Got on a little bit of a run, and the crowd really got into it, and got a lot of defensive stops, and had a really strong second half.
I caught just a tad of Billy Taylor's interview as we were going live here, but of course he talked to the Big Ten Network after the game, and I thought he hit the nail on the head. I didn't think Iowa played good defense at all in the first half. It was obviously a lot better. What changed from the first half to the second?
Well, that's a good question. I think they did a better job of containing the ball. I didn't think Minnesota got to the rim quite as much. I thought Minnesota got a little tired as the game went on. They don't sub very much. And a lot of their shots started getting a little flat and short. But I thought Iowa did a good job of controlling the ball, getting the rim protected, closing out a little bit quicker, and just overall, as a group, just much more sharper and aggressive and physical, and played real well.
And I absolutely agree. I thought 75% of that second half, Iowa played really good defense. I will say, to be fair, not to be negative, because again, I'm acknowledging that Iowa played really well defensively. I did not think Minnesota attacked the Iowa zone very well, and they got a little shot happy. Did you see the same thing?
Yeah, I think they've had, it's kind of been their thing all year where they get into these scoring droughts, and which a lot of teams do. Theirs seem to last a little bit longer, but to Iowa's credit, they got them into one and did a good job of defending the glass with the defensive rebounds, and so it's a win they needed and they got, and that's a sign of a good team.
All right, so the big story, Gary, and again, this is a good win for Iowa. It's not going to help them from a marquee standpoint, from a quad 1 or even quad 2 standpoint on the resume. It's avoiding what would have been a bad loss. But the big storyline, at least in the chat, and I know on social media people are talking about it, is the lineup change and where was Joe Toussaint. Do you have any idea what was going on there? Because the report was that he was not hurt.
Yeah, he didn't look like he was when he played. So no, I think it was a combination of moving Jordan to the point, and they played well. So I think that's probably, the rotation was a little shorter tonight. I haven't seen a final box score, but I'm guessing the minutes were a little more higher for the starters, especially in the second half, and probably rightfully so, because they were playing really well, and when something like that happens, you like to ride them a little bit.
And just as you were saying that, Gary, I just got the official box score. So final minutes for Joe Toussaint, for anybody wondering, he played 5 minutes, Gary. And now here's the other thing. We don't know what's going on in practice. I'm not trying to imply that Joe Toussaint is being disciplined for anything, but is that fair to say that sometimes minutes can be reflected based on what's happening behind scenes?
It could be, for sure. I think it's probably more that they felt like they needed a change. I think more they wanted to get Jordan at the 1. I think they wanted to play him at the 1 more and see if that could get him going a little bit. Therefore, you needed 2, and so I think they sit him down and play what's his name at 2? I can't think of his name right now.
Tony Perkins.
Tony Perkins. So I think that was a big part, that they want to play Jordan at the 1 and needed a 2, and that's where Tony is. And then I think Ulis came in and played pretty well, and so now you're the third point guard, and kind of reflected his minutes.
Now, the defenders of Joe Toussaint, Gary, I'll just speak for them. The defenders would say that's not fair to Joe Toussaint. Jordan Bohannon's struggling to be effective at the 2, so he gets 6 minutes in response. Is that a fair perspective?
Well, I think what you try to do is do what you think's best for the team, and I think that was a decision that they made to see if it would, provide a spark or what have you. Just play a little better, and for the most part, I think it was effective. So when Joe played, he was good. He had a lot of energy, and it's a long year, so you just got to keep battling but I think I felt with how they played that I think they felt they needed a lineup change just to see if they could get something going, and that was the decision that they made.
I thought I led with this, Gary. I thought Keegan Murray may have played his best game of his career here, and maybe that's exaggerating, but it's a combination of, he had 24 points, 15 boards, but what he did defensively on Minnesota's best player, Jamison Battle, was a game changer. How good was he on both ends?
Yeah, terrific game. Yeah, he had a lot of energy, some tough rebounds in traffic, some great finishes in traffic, and he'll even probably tell you he left a couple out there that he liked to have back. But no, you need your star player to step up down the stretch here, and that's who he is, and that's that's what he provided. So very, very encouraging. Really, really strong performance for him.
And just a shout out to Patrick McCaffrey, 18 points and 7 really big rebounds for a guy who's long and athletic. That's encouraging to see him get on the glass. And Aaron Eulis, I thought, played well. 9 points, 5 boards, 2 assists. I thought he was just really good on both ends.
I do too. I think that's part of the reason I think from a defensive standpoint, they felt they might get a little better with him. And I thought Jordan played well defensively. Maybe his best defensive game. So it's all worked out. It was a really, really, really good win in a lot of respects, and one they needed badly heading back on the road.
Gary, my last question for you, and then we'll let you slide here. As it relates to, we can quickly preview Iowa's next game, but as it relates to Joe Toussaint, assuming that there's nothing going on behind the scenes, and this is just a result of the lineup and trying to help, you got to have Jordan. I understand the perspective. You got to have Jordan in there because he's your only elite 3-point shooter. So I understand that. But how do you keep Joe Toussaint locked in at this point? It just because he is human.
Yeah, I a little bit of coaching. Joe's been around the block a little bit. I mean, this is you got to stay ready because things can change in a heartbeat, and he's a competitor, and you don't want him to be happy not playing, but also I got to understand that it's a decision they made for the best of the team. It worked, but hey, guy turns his ankle, guy gets in foul trouble, guy doesn't play well. You got to be ready, and that's what Tony and Eulis did, and when they got their shot, they played pretty well. So the more the merrier. So he's just got to get ready to go, not take it personal, and be ready because he's still got a bunch of games left, and anything can happen. So you gotta stay ready.
And one other note, I thought Peyton Sandfort came in and gave them some good minutes tonight as well.
Yeah.
And just glancing at the box score here, Gary, it's hard. We talk about how hard it is to win games when you're losing on the boards by 15, 16, 17. It's hard also to lose games when you're only turning the ball over 6 times. And that's what Iowa did tonight. Just taking care of the basketball.
Yep. A nice, crisp, solid, well-played game at both ends. And I like, they struggled a little bit in the first half and regrouped and, it's a 40-minute game. You're not going to play great for 40 minutes, or you want to try to get as close to it as possible. But, they regrouped at halftime and pecked away, and then had a great spurt where they got a bunch of stops in a row and fed into their offense. And all of a sudden it's a double-digit game. And that's a Minnesota team that had Wisconsin tied with 2 minutes to go in their last game.
Yeah, it's a fight we talked about earlier in the year, Gary. Minnesota plays everybody tough. But Iowa found a way to pull away in that second half. So turning our attention, final thing here, Gary, Maryland on Thursday. It's always tough to play at Maryland, but I said going into this game that I think I was thinking from my perspective, tournament-wise, my eyes in the tournament, that Iowa needed to rattle off 3 straight wins. They had Minnesota today, Maryland on the road Thursday, and then Nebraska after that. So that's an excellent opportunity to get 3 straight wins. How do they do that on the road at Maryland?
Well, play like they played in the second half today. Just really solid at both ends. Build on what they did. Minnesota had very few open looks in the second half. A lot of shots that were contested, very few at the rim. And so they got Maryland's probably a little more explosive offensively than maybe Minnesota. They don't have the droughts. But I think they just got to build on what they did today. Just play good, solid basketball and take it literally one possession at a time and try to win more possessions than they do and get out of there with a win and get back home.
And by the way, for anybody wondering, after that 3-game stretch, they get 2 more games at home, 1 against Michigan, 1 against Michigan State. So this is an opportunity for Iowa to get hot. Certainly something Iowa fans maybe not completely used to in February. So it's certainly an opportunity with the schedule. Gary, travel safe back to Wisconsin,
okay.
And we'll talk to you Thursday.
You bet, Corey. Enjoyed it. Thanks.
All right, take care. Appreciate Gary Close joining us this afternoon, as always. And our line is open. We'll throw up the number here for everybody, 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. I know the Iowa women are underway, so we won't hang out here forever, but want to open the line up for anybody who is interested in calling and your thoughts on the Joe Toussaint situation, your thoughts on Iowa's tournament hopes at this point. I'm very positive. I'm very positive. If anybody listened to my podcast this past week, I predicted that Iowa would win 4 straight here. Now that may not happen. Maybe that's a bit over optimistic with, again, the likes of, Michigan, who's in there, and then of course Maryland on the road. That game at Maryland's not going to be easy. It's never easy to win at Maryland, but it's also a Maryland team. As of right now, looking at the standings, Maryland is 3rd from the bottom. So they're right ahead of Minnesota. They're 3-9 in the conference, 11-12 overall. That's a win if you're a tournament team and you're Iowa and you're in a tournament team. You need to find a way to win that game. Now, can they make the tournament without beating Maryland? Probably. But, man, they got to start getting some road wins, start getting some quality wins just from a seeding standpoint. Of course, they're not securely in the tournament, but from a seeding standpoint, they need to get some quality or you could say marquee victories. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Lomansky, Corey.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. Just a few numbers for you can contemplate. I was 13 for 34 in the first half. Minnesota was 48%. Another thing that's interesting is that Bobby Hansen, 7 minutes and 30 seconds left in the second half, said Iowa's gassed, or not Iowa's gassed. Both teams are gassed, but especially Minnesota. And Bobby called the second half defensive performance the defensive performance of the year. And, that man-to-man worked. I talk about Iowa's style, and I think they just wore them out, a team that doesn't have much depth. Really interesting in the first half, if you take up how many shots, not first half, overall, let's just take overall, 46 shots inside the 3-point line. So these are 46 shots, non-3-point line, and 15 by Keegan, and you had 11 by Patrick, and you had 9 by Ulis. I thought the inside the 3-point game was critical, especially in the second half. And I think last time we talked, I talked about the 3 guys, Keegan, Chris, and Patrick McCaffrey. And Patrick McCaffrey just had a fabulous game. He was, these are my stats. I've got him 5 two-point field goals out of 9. I got him 2 for 3 from the 3-point line with his boards. And then I'll kick it back to you after I tell you that the pregame, it sounds like the Iowa coaching staff is really trying to scheme how to unleash Jordan Bohannon. And if you look at the first half shooting by Iowa, or even the game, we've got 3 guys taking all the shots, Keegan and Patrick And I'm happy for Aaron Eulis that he's got confidence to give it a go. But what I heard pregame that they've been scheming how to get Jordan Bohannon unleashed. Before the game, they talked about starting at guard, and then the off guard, of course, goes to Tony Perkins. And that's what I know to give you for information. And we'll see how Jordan develop his stats for the game. He threw up 2 3-pointers late in the game, but I've got him not taking inside the circle shot. I got him 2 for 7 3-point line. I'll kick it back to you for a few moments.
Yeah, I'll say this. I really struggle with the Toussaint to the bench. I'll just be honest. Maybe it's just the fan in me, the emotional side of me, because I feel for Joe Toussaint. The problem here is, and I said it at the outset that I thought Jordan Bohannon, he's given a lot of effort on both ends. The fact of the matter is Joe Toussaint came back thinking that this was his team and that he was the starting point guard. And Gary's right. If you're the coach, you got to do what's best for the team. I maybe I'm wrong in feeling this way. I just feel sorry for Joe Toussaint because I don't think he's done anything to lose his starting spot. To me, Lemansky, you've seen him play, to me, he's defending well. I mean, he's never going to he's not going to be a 15, 20-point scorer, but he's not turning the ball over at a high rate. He's defending really well, and he ends up with 6 minutes tonight. I hope nothing else is going on, but at the same time, it's almost like I want an explanation because Joe Toussaint deserves better, in my opinion. But again, I understand the other side of it. It is a team sport, and it did seem to help. Iowa did. I mean, maybe I'm jumping to conclusions saying that helped, but it did seem like the offense was flowing a bit better, and Jordan Bohannon did hit a couple threes.
Well, I'd be interested how many minutes Tony Perkins got because Aaron Eulis had such a good game, and he's coming. I think we can all say, we wonder about his 3-point shooting, but Aaron Eulis seems to have they interviewed him after the game, and he talks about what he worked on this year was leadership. And I wonder if Aaron Eulis had such a good game that, it's hard to give everybody minutes. But I don't think we have to worry about Joe Toussaint. I think he'll get his minutes before the year is over. I think he'll put him back in the lineup. He just gives too much energy to the team overall. And I'm pretty confident the coaching staff will get Joe Toussaint more minutes going forward. And like you, I do feel bad for him this game because the one play he made was probably the highlight play of the game where he dove out of bounds and risked his life. And they talked about that on the radio, very complimentary. But
yeah,
you're not exactly off on, everybody wants to be motivated. And I think you had the minutes for Joe Toussaint, and I was kind of like, well, damn,
Yeah, under 6 minutes, and Tony Perkins ended up with just 18, which is actually not very much in comparison to everybody else. But Eulis played his tail off, so he got over 21 minutes. I mean, it is a matter of who plays. I mean, Chris Murray only had 14 minutes, and on a typical night, I'd like to see Chris with more than 20. So it's hard to. The problem is, Lemansky, and you know this, Iowa has not gotten consistent offensive production, and I'm talking about just flat up scoring, regardless of how you look at scoring, 3-point shooting, whatever. They have not gotten consistent scoring from really anybody but Keegan. Sometimes it's Patrick, sometimes it's Chris. Once in a while it's Jordan. We had a stretch earlier in the year where it was Tony Perkins. But they don't really have that number 2 guy right now, unless maybe it's Patrick. Maybe he's emerging to be that. They need somebody who's consistent. And so I think as a result, you're going to see, you're probably out. You're going to see certain games where Joe Toussaint gets 15 minutes, other games where Aaron Eulis gets 20 minutes. I mean, it's just going to depend on who plays better on what day. And that's probably how it should be.
I think you're onto something because that's why I gave you tonight just those who's taken all the shots, and if you just put Keegan and Patrick together, we're going to need somebody. We're going to need somebody either inside presence or outside shooting to present themselves against deeper and better teams. And right now the Hawks don't have it. So,
no, they don't.
6'7" Peyton Sanford, I like to listen to the radio and try to flip back to TV, but I think Peyton Sanford can get on the court even more if he plays the type of defense and extra effort everywhere else. He's 6'7". He can create a lot of problems.
I agree.
And I was wrong. I was looking thinking totally offensively, but this game he kind of proved that he's kind of getting off that freshman. What do they say? Halfway through the Big Ten, you're not a freshman anymore.
Yeah. Well,
and I hope Peyton keeps coming. And but I think you're onto something about the bigger, better teams. If we want to steal a road game, somebody else has to show, because we got 2 big guns, Patrick and Keegan.
Well, and I mean, let me just make this clear, Lemansky. If Patrick gives them what did he give them tonight? He gave them 18 and 7. If he gives them that on a regular basis, this team can beat anybody. I mean, you don't need 3 and 4, dynamite scores. The problem is Patrick hasn't given them that every night. So certainly not the 7 rebounds. Philip Rebracha for a while was that number 2 guy. I mean, it just seems like it's changed. And again, maybe that will work, but there have been games, I think of the Rutgers game, where nobody shows up for that secondary role. And that's a problem. That's why they scored 46 and lost at Rutgers. So now I know you can blame the officiating at the end of that game, but my point is, to win in the tournament, you just don't want to roll the dice if you don't have somebody who is a proven secondary scorer along with Keegan Murray. And Keegan Murray is pulling so much weight right now. I mean, what he did defensively tonight, that's why I just don't see him coming back next year. He's just playing his way to being a lottery pick. I know we can debate that topic. He's just playing sensational right now defensively. And you combine that with 24 and 15. So, I think this team can be dangerous. I think this team can win games in the tournament if they can get Patrick to score 18 tonight, or if it's Rebracha or whoever.
Another thing, Dolphin mentioned there was 14,500 at Carver, which made me smile. That was nice to hear from Dolphin.
Yeah, that's a good number. I mean, it'd be nice to have a sellout, but you can't get greedy. And I thought the students weren't. I didn't think the students were tremendously loud. Gary said it was a good crowd. The problem, Lemansky, as you may or may not know, Iowa got 1 Saturday home game this year. Michigan State got 8. Think about that for a second. The Big Ten dealt Iowa 1 Saturday home game, and Michigan State got 8. How is that fair?
Yeah, I think Coach McCaffrey has talked about that in his they have it at every Tuesday or Monday. Yeah. They have him and he's talked about that, and it's ridiculous. I like Fran because he really sounded like he used to go to work on that. He's very aware that he's not happy about it.
Well, it's absolutely ridiculous. For it to be that lopsided, that's just obscene. So that doesn't help the crowds. It also doesn't help when we were looking to the schedule during the game. Iowa plays Northwestern on a Monday at 8:00. I mean, it's just, I'm not making. I've said for months now that I don't make excuses, because you see other arenas selling out at almost any time of the week. The problem with Iowa is, you do have a climate here where weather can affect you. Not that other Big Ten schools don't. But the other part of this is, I think there has been a bit of a disconnect with the students. I've talked about that. And I think you need extra incentive to get students to come to these games. And so when it's a late night game, it's bad weather, you have to walk down all the stairs. You have long lines for concessions. Carver just probably isn't the most appealing visually. And just from a noise standpoint, it's complicated. And I know it's a totally different subject that we could talk about a different day, but no, I thought the crowd was good. I wish we could get that during the week, because they got some games during the week they need to win coming up.
Yeah, I'll talk about where they sit the students on a different night. I'll end with this and let somebody else be involved with the program. But I'm so proud of the Children's Hospital, and I graduated from Iowa, and I remember that was the tailgating area, and of course the hospital expanded, and of course, what's really neat, the students had a dance marathon. They raised $1,300,000 on a dance marathon recently for the Children's Hospital. And Francis talked about the Iowa City community, former players that have come long distance, talked about how they like the Iowa City community. But that $1,300,000 for Children's Hospital is just to credit who the Iowa people are. And I'll close with that and hang up and listen to your program.
All right, sir. Appreciate the call, and I totally agree with you. Have a great night. We'll talk to you next time. Appreciate that call from Lemansky. Yeah, I think the children's hospital and the way the athletic department has gotten behind. I'm not talking about maybe administration, but certainly what Kirk Ferentz has done, all the work that Fran has done. I think it's clear. Got a lot of good people working. Whether you support Fran or you support Kirk, I think those two guys are really good men. I don't know them each very well, but I think that's pretty clear. Excellent point. As it relates to basketball, I see this comment from Raymond. I wouldn't use the word pathetic. Perhaps that's a bit harsh, but I didn't think the students were very loud. But again, close to a sellout. I know sports information right before the game. I got an email that said that there were around approximately 1,000 tickets remaining. So that's about what I would have expected the announced attendance be. But they got to figure out a way again to attract students. And again, we can talk about that during the off season, but that's going to be an ongoing discussion. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, it's the real MVP.
Yeah, boy, them Auburn Tigers looked pretty good last night, didn't they, buddy boy?
Well, I since we're going there, I'm going to no trolling, no joking. Gonzaga is number one in my poll now.
Okay, thank you, thank you very much. Gonzaga torched BYU, and that's bad Georgia.
A good team.
That is a bad Georgia team that Auburn nearly lost to. What again? Have they done that now twice?
Yes, to Missouri as well.
Missouri, that's the other team. Yeah, those are two bad teams, and they're playing with fire right now. They're winning. They're playing. They don't look like the number one team in the country, in my opinion.
Now, here's where I will give you a little differentiating to give some SEC bias.
Sure.
Gonzaga has the best resume. Kentucky is the best team in the country right now.
Well, yeah, that's definitely your bias shining through. But no, I agree. Kentucky's playing great. They're probably. I haven't made my poll yet. I'll release that later on tonight. But no, it's neck and neck right now. As far as top five, Kentucky's definitely because a lot team. This is just like I keep saying, it's an entertaining year. That's why I think a team like Iowa. If Iowa sneaks into the tournament, not to bring this full circle, but if Iowa sneaks into the tournament, folks, I don't think if as long as you can avoid being on that 8-9 line where you have to play a number one seed, if Iowa gets matched up with Gonzaga in the second round, I mean, what are we doing here? But I think it's an opportunity for a team like Iowa or whoever's in that next notch down, whether again you're talking a 7-10 or a 6-11 matchup, to actually win that second round game and make a Sweet 16. I think this is the year to do it.
Well, I know Joe Lenardi pushed you down on the 8 line. So another bracketology I saw had you on the 12 line. So
yeah, it's
kind of all over the place.
All over the place. And this win today is not going to help Iowa as far as positioning, but you lose this game and Iowa very well would have fallen out of the field as of right now. No question about it. They would not have been in the field, at least in my opinion, had they lost today. And I predicted they'd win. But boy, that halftime, I think fans were getting some sweaty palms because that was a not a great first half. And then you have it capped off by the half court heat, which I did not ask Gary about, but that was about as big of a disaster of an end of a half that I've ever seen.
Yeah. But I'm not sure if you saw this, another 12 seed lost today in Iona. They lost to, I think, the Falls. I don't even know what team they are, but some irrelevant team. So that's a quad 4 or probably quad 4, maybe a quad 3 loss. So that'll help Iowa.
Who did Iona lose to?
Something called the Falls.
The Falls.
I don't know their team name. It's like.
Well, it sounds like their mascot's a waterfall. Let me look this up here. So you're saying Iona was being projected in as an at-large? Is that what you're implying?
No, they could have been projected in as an at-large if who's the other? Monmouth, I think it is. They were projected to get 2 in, but with this loss, it's most likely going to be 1.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, so they lost to Niagara.
Niagara, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Drake, they lost to Northern Iowa, and Missouri State lost to Loyola Chicago. So that shrinks the Valley's automatic bids from 4 to 3.
Yeah,
so that should help you guys out.
Yeah, I think we've said this before. Dural MVP. I think there's going to be very few bid stealers. Just how things are going.
the only way that a bid stealer probably can happen is you have a low-light team like Georgetown last year win a conference that's horrible, or you have a Gonzaga lose to San Francisco, BYU, or St. Mary's, but I don't see them losing to either of those teams. I mean, they're Chet Morris, he's really improved since the last time I saw him at Duke. He looks stronger. He looks bigger. He doesn't look like he can get bullied as much, so that's good for them.
You're talking about Chet Holmgren?
Yeah, Chet Holmgren. Sorry.
Yeah, to me, I haven't seen him recently, but to me, he did not look like an NBA player that first month.
No. He looked weak. He didn't have any core strength anyway.
Absolutely.
At best, he would have been like a Taco Falls or a Bowl type player where he uses his Lincoln size to distract shots, but it would just be, at best, a rotational piece.
I agree.
So, but in terms of Iowa, this is it's not a disastrous loss is what you're trying to avoid. But my question for you, Corey, is how do you go from having to go on the road to play the Ohio State to playing Minnesota at home? What's the mindset difference once you figure out the game's postponed? And do you think that played a factor in the first half?
I don't know I don't think it plays a factor directly. I do think coming off that double overtime loss to Penn State, perhaps it was actually good that Iowa had that extra period off. I don't know that to be true, but to lose at Penn State the way they lost in double overtime, maybe getting that Ohio State game later in the season. What I don't want to see, Drill MVP, what I don't want to see is Iowa get that game against Ohio State scheduled, in that last, between Michigan and Illinois, those final two games. I hope the Big Ten doesn't try to do that. I'm hoping, I don't know where they're going to reschedule it, but if they do that, I hope they can get it rescheduled here soon, because I just don't want to have a bunch of games crammed up next to the Big Ten tournament, because certainly even if Iowa's comfortably in, and I think that's a big question mark at this point, but if they're comfortably in heading into the Big Ten tournament, they're going to have an excellent opportunity to either improve their seeding substantially or lose seeding. I mean, the Big Ten, the tournament's going to be, I think, a little bit more influential this year than maybe ever before. Again, because we're going to have less bid stealers. I think there's more. I think just more balance across the landscape. If Iowa were to go to the Big Ten tournament and make the conference championship or even the semifinals, that's going to help them. It probably will move them up a seed or two. And again, I don't know where to project Iowa. I've said it many times. I'd much rather be an 11. I mean, the 11 seed is almost. Can you agree with this? An 11 seed is almost like the perfect seed. If you're not going to be a 6 or better, I would rather be an 11 than anything else, right? Because
there's actually been math done on this, and it's actually been proven that the 11 or 12 seed has a more likely chance to make the Final Four than an 8 or 9 seed.
But the problem with the 12 is I don't do bracketology, but correct me if I'm wrong, but the 12 seed, one of the 12 games is a play-in game, correct?
That doesn't matter, because at least one of the first four teams have made the Final Four 6 or 7 years in a row.
I understand, but what I'm just saying is you don't want to have to play in the play-in game. So
I understand, but I'm just saying from a pure math perspective, it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, Tennessee did that, but no,
UCLA did it last year.
UCLA did it. You're right. I would much rather, my point is I'd much rather be an 11, probably a 12, than be a 7, 8, 9, or 10. And Iowa seems to always end up as a 7, 8, 9, or 10, as opposed to last year where they were the 2 and they lose in the second round. So, I don't know. I'm not really looking at seeding so much. I know that the bracketologists, DeCourcy and Palm and Lunardi are all, they're kind of on different pages as it relates to Iowa, but, I stand by what I said earlier. If Iowa can avoid more than 10 losses, again, even if that means you're 9-10, if they end up 9-10 in the Big Ten Conference and don't get that Ohio State game rescheduled, I think Iowa makes the tournament. I think we're sweating.
Well, what if they lose their first round game in the Big Ten?
I think we're sweating. I think we're sweating on Selection Sunday. I still think they're in. If they end up 9-10, even if they lose their opening round game, I think you're in. If you're Iowa, I wouldn't. Again, I think 10-10, you're definitely in. 9-10, without an opportunity to play Ohio State, I think it's a question mark, but I think I would probably say they're in the final 4 teams in.
Right. Well, I think they can split Michigan. I think that's possible. Michigan,
absolutely.
Michigan's been a disaster this year.
I mean,
I don't know how to say it.
There's no reason to think Iowa couldn't sweep Michigan. Now, they could also get swept. If they get swept to Michigan, that's not good because you're right. Michigan is not, especially that game at home. That is a game Iowa really needs to. They need to win one of those games. And it's always tough to, as you know, it's always tough to play at Ann Arbor. But you're right. There's no reason for Iowa not to at least be able to steal one of those games.
And I also think another team they can beat is Michigan State. Michigan State, as of lately, they're not impressing me. I mean, I'm not sure if you saw the game they played against Rutgers.
Yeah.
They looked horrible.
They got killed. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, it was unacceptable what happened to Michigan State. I mean, Rutgers is not a team that's going to go up and down the court and now beat you with fast break points and turnovers.
But they are
Michigan
tough.
State.
They are tough to beat on the road, real MVP. Rutgers is so hard to beat on the road.
I understand that, but there should be a point where, I mean, the gap between Michigan State and Rutgers should be a pretty big gap. Rutgers isn't that. Michigan State's a top 15 team, top 20 team. Rutgers, top 50.
Rutgers is just well coached. They've got, Geo Bakers. They got between Baker and Harper. They got tons of experience. McConnell, they're just really experienced. And again, the RAC is just a tough place to play. I think they're going to struggle in the tournament. I think they'll struggle in the tournament, but they play defense, and that gives you a chance.
Oh. Well, let me ask you: do you think Rutgers is in?
Yeah, I went back and forth because they got that loss to is it Lafayette, I believe, at home, which is going to hurt them. I would say right now they are because they're over 500 in the Big Ten.
And I mean, they've been 2 of the best teams in the Big Ten. That helps.
Yeah.
Purdue and Wisconsin. I mean, Purdue and Michigan State.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say is I'll give you, Corey, my top 5 rankings. Okay, the real top 5 rankings, I'll call it. Now, this doesn't have to influence your poll, but you can explain to me why I'm wrong.
Okay.
I've Gonzaga, Auburn, Kentucky, Houston, Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, you know where I'm going to have a problem with that. But, I mean, Kansas got embarrassed a week ago to your Kentucky Wildcats at home. Now, I know they look good this weekend against Baylor. And then Houston, again, I'm just not as high on Houston. You know how I feel about Houston. So.
Yeah, but the problem I have with them is they just keep winning. It's kind of like Wisconsin. They just keep winning.
Well, I think Iowa would be winning if you played in that conference. I think Iowa would be close to undefeated in that conference if they played in the same conference as Houston, replacing Houston.
I could see that, but I think the margin of victory would be a whole lot closer in some of these games. Like, Houston is just blowing teams out now. They weren't earlier, but now they're just dominating.
Yeah, I'll definitely look at them a little bit closer here tonight. I haven't even made the poll yet, but no, I'll definitely look at it. Yeah,
look at Houston, please, because I mean they've been playing much better. And finally, the last thing I will suggest to you is, can you lower Duke? I know I'm a Kentucky fan, but they haven't had any really impressive wins all season, other than my Cats at the beginning. And we were bad at the beginning because we're all freshmen, and it was our first game.
Well, what hurts Duke is I think the ACC continues to look worse and worse. Miami doesn't look as good as I thought they were. Florida State doesn't look as good as I thought they were. So, yeah, that goes into it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it is. Corey, good luck making the tournament. These next few games are going to be very, very important for Iowa fans.
Absolutely. So. All right, sir. Appreciate the time as always. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, no problem, Corey.
All right, have a great night. Appreciate the calls from Drill MVP. Yes, talking brackets, and I see Greg's comment here. Why are these guys talking tourney when the Hawkeyes just lost 2 games on the road they should have had? So are we talking Rutgers and Penn State? So for the record, Greg, and I understand that the game, the loss at Penn State is, I really wouldn't quantify it as a bad loss. Should Iowa have won it? Probably. If we're looking at it from a tournament perspective, that's a game you probably should win, even though it's on the road. It's against a You could call Penn State a bottom feeder team. For the record, though, everybody but Nebraska, and even Nebraska at times, everybody in this conference has played tough throughout. I mean, this is from top to bottom. I think the Big Ten is collectively the best conference in the country. The Big 12 is certainly right there. I think the SEC is better. Pac-12, I don't think is very good at all. The ACC, I don't think is very good at all. We'll see if that plays out in the tournament. But the reason why we're talking about tournament is because Iowa right now is one game under 500. And Lunardi, I mean, make fun of Lunardi if you want. Just last week, he had them as a 7. I believe he's got them as an 8 now. I think that's what Darrell MVP said. I have not checked his bracketology here last few days, but as far as I'm aware, they're in right now. So, and I think they'll be in. If they're 10-10, if they finish the season 10-10, I think they're in. The Rutgers loss, I'm going to disagree with you on that one, Greg. The Rutgers loss is not a bad loss. Nobody's winning. Very few people are winning at Rutgers. So it's just a tough place to play. Now, you say, well, Lafayette did it. This seems like a different a different Rutgers team. Remember, Purdue got beat at Rutgers. Michigan State got blown away this weekend at Rutgers. So, yes, the Penn State game is a loss Iowa would clearly want back. The Rutgers game, certainly, you could argue is stolen from them given that last call against Keegan Murray, but I would not quantify it as a bad loss. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, it's Jared the Actor.
Hey, Jared the Actor. How are you, sir?
Doing great tonight after a good win,
Absolutely.
After several losses, of course. Good to have that one, of course, right?
Absolutely. No, they needed this. I mean, again, not just to get back in the win column, but I keep saying it, to avoid what would have been a quad 3 loss. And for the record, anybody wondering, they don't really know how the quad system works. That's fine. You can do research on that. But Iowa was undefeated in quad 3 in 4 games up until this point. So through November, December, January, they were undefeated in quad 3 and 4 games. So to lose today would have been really disastrous. Would have been their worst loss.
Yeah, I mean, they were at risk of dropping some serious points there. And I'm really not sure if they're going to make the tournament. I mean, they're like on the brink. I mean, how close are they, would you say, to kind of falling out of that, last 4 in?
Well, I think that the way they would fall out is if they start losing games. And I know the Penn State game, you could argue, was a game they should have won. And I would agree with that. But I think right now they would, if they lose to Nebraska at home, that's a devastating loss. If they had lost to Minnesota tonight at home, if they lose to, I believe they play Northwestern at home. Northwestern's better than people think. But that would probably, you got to win those games at home. You almost have to win every game at home. Now, again, Iowa has not done that. They lost to Purdue at home. They lost to Illinois at home. But you could argue those are the 2 best teams in the conference. So I think right now they're in. I mean, I don't know of any bracketologists that don't have them in right now. Jordan brings that point up in the chat here. Everybody's got them in at this point, despite the fact that Iowa doesn't have any marquee victories. So let's just wait and see. But I think right now, if they keep winning against who they should win against, they're in. The problem is, Jared the Actor, if you drop one of those games, then you have no margin for error. And honestly, they may not have any margin for error right now. But if they can beat somebody they're not supposed to beat, for instance, you win at Michigan or you beat Michigan State at home, that can turn the tide because they need another quad 1 victory.
So what's the magic number, in your opinion, for win-loss record for them to get in?
10-10. If they're 10-10, I think they're in. And I know people can argue that we don't have any marquee victories. The committee is not leaving out a 10-10 Big Ten team. I don't care who the victories are against. I don't care if there's 2 against Nebraska, 2 against Northwestern, 2 against Rutgers, 2 against Penn State. They're in at 10-10. I'm confident of that. Now, if they're 9-11, Jared, I could see them being left out. I think it's a 9-11. I'd feel a lot better if they could win a game or 2 in the Big Ten tournament. And even then, it's probably bubble talk. I think 10-10 they're in, even if they were to lose in the first round. If they go 10-10 and lose in the first round, I'll be nervous on Selection Sunday. But I just have to think that they will be in if they can do that. And right now, that Utah State win helps them because it's considered a quad 1 win. The Virginia win's not really helping them at all because Virginia is just not what we hoped they would be. And the Indiana win at home is helping Iowa right now. So if you can get another win against a marquee team, or a win against a marquee team, it'll help you. But I think 10-10 right now they're in.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're right. I'm nervous. I was for sure thinking they're going to get in about a month ago, and they're, the Fran fade, as us Hawkeyes talk about, fans rather, is in full effect here. I hope they can do it.
Fran wasn't coaching
one
tonight, so
question.
maybe that's why they won in February, because Fran wasn't coaching.
Yeah, and last question, just tell me why Jordan Bohannon is still getting so many minutes. He is airballing 3-point shots. I mean, Keegan Murray had to save the game the other day just to get an OT with that, air ball that he did. Tell me in your thoughts, like, why is he still getting so many minutes? Just because he's old and a legacy player? I just, it's baffling.
Okay, first of all, I don't have any problem with that question. I will say this: the explanation I can give you is Iowa doesn't have 3-point shooters. I mean, they just don't. I mean, with C.J. Frederick gone, Wieskamp, Garza, all those guys gone, Patrick can make threes. Chris can make threes. Peyton Sandfort can occasionally come in and make threes. But they don't have a guy who you can count on every night to make threes. And I understand it. Right now, Iowa's not been able to count on Jordan Bohannon doing that. But he's the leading 3-point shooter in Iowa history. So I think if you're Fran at this point, I understand his perspective. I think they're putting all their chips on Jordan Bohannon because they realize they're not going to be able to win without a consistent 3-point threat. And if you take Bohannon and you start playing him less and less, then you're guaranteeing yourself to not have quality 3-point numbers. And I think just hoping and just trying to figure out a way to get Jordan open. They slid him to the point guard position today. Figuring out a way to try to get him open is their best chance at getting quality 3-point production, because it's just not coming anywhere else. That would be my best explanation. And I think he's playing hard on defense. I understand your perspective. I feel bad for Joe Toussaint. I said that earlier in the show, but I think they're just trying to figure out a way to unleash what has been a very prolific 3-point career for Jordan Bohannon.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've been watching for the past 6 years. He's been a part of the program. He's been an excellent, clutch shooter, but I guess lately it's been hard to watch. So
I understand. Yeah.
I hope he improves, but we shall see. So thanks a lot, Corey, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.
All right, Jared. Appreciate the call. And I understand the perspective. When I saw today that Tony Perkins was coming in, not in place of Jordan Bohannon, but in place of Joe Toussaint, I was baffled. But I mean, it did work. I mean, they didn't win the game. Now we'll see if it works long term. For the record, Jordan Bohannon was 2 of 7 from 3. So I don't want to act like he just lit the world on fire playing at the 1, but he has played the majority of his career at the 1. Okay. And to be completely honest, you're just looking for answers if you're Fran McCaffrey right now. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors with Joe Toussaint. I hear people talking about Joe Toussaint's going to transfer. I mean, I'll be honest. I've had that thought as well. I've thought it before. I think Joe Toussaint clearly is a very team-oriented guy. He's really taken a backseat to a lot of players in his career. That's just what he's done. And you can say he played his way out of starting at times. Turnovers have been an issue at times for Jordan Bohannon, et cetera. But, for Joe Toussaint. The point is, I think he's a team-first guy, so I wouldn't dismiss him yet and just assume he's gone. Let's see what he does against Maryland. Perhaps he comes in and plays 20 minutes and plays great against Maryland. And maybe he'll play better off the bench. That's yet to be determined. I do feel bad for him at this point. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. Gary says, right now, due to scheduling pattern, Rutgers has 2 better Big Ten wins than the Hawks. Key stretch ahead for Iowa. Absolutely. And again, the Maryland win on the road is not really an opportunity to marquee victory, but it's an opportunity to get a road victory, which we know are hard to come by in this conference. It's not going to be a bad loss, but I think they need to get to 500. And right now they're 1 game below 500. They haven't played that Ohio State game, which they were supposed to have played Thursday. And perhaps that's a good thing that they had that game canceled, because you lose that one, you're 4-7. And then you feel like you're behind the 8 ball and struggling to tread water. Good point by Eric. Penn State almost beat Wisconsin yesterday. Penn State plays teams tough, as does Minnesota. Ray says, is Jared the actor related to Eric the actor? Jared, I'm going to throw that over to you. Greg says, my point was, how are they going to go 9-10 or 10-10 before Big Ten tourney the way Iowa's playing? Well, Greg, if you haven't watched my podcast from last week, please do that, because I outlined the schedule. They don't have – Iowa's actually been afforded a fairly favorable Big Ten schedule. I mean, it's actually been fairly favorable. They get Maryland on the road, then they get Nebraska. They get Michigan, who's not the team they have been, at home. They get Michigan State at home. Then they get at Nebraska, home against Northwestern. I mean, that's a lot of opportunities for victory. Yes, they finished with Michigan and Illinois. It's not murderer's row, Greg. 9-10, if they can't get to 9-10, then this team doesn't deserve to be in the tournament. If they only play 19 games and without the Ohio State game, and they can't get to 9-10, then they don't deserve to be in the tournament. There's just I don't think 9-11. Not saying I don't hope they get in the tournament if they end up 9-11, but I don't think you can say they were deserving, especially if they don't get a couple marquee victories. Again, they don't have a ton of chances left on the schedule for marquee victories if that Ohio State game doesn't happen. That's probably their best opportunity to marquee victory. They've already played Purdue twice. They do get Illinois on the road. So between the Ohio State game on the road, Illinois on the road, one of those two games will be essential for Iowa getting a marquee win. But again, I think they can get to 9-10. So if you look at the schedule or the standings right now, Iowa has 5 wins in the conference. We're talking, can Iowa get to 9 wins playing the way they are, Greg? So Nebraska on the road, that's going to be a tough game because it's on the road. But assuming they win at Nebraska, at home against Nebraska, there's 2 wins. So right there, if you're Iowa, you're at 7 wins. Say they play, say they beat Michigan at home, which I think is very, very doable. I think we can all imagine that happening. Let's assume that's a win. So now you're looking at 8 wins. They get Northwestern at home. That's 9 wins. I mean, is that far-fetched to assume? Am I going crazy, people? Somebody tell me I'm crazy. That's not far-fetched at all. And that's assuming they lose at Michigan, home against Michigan State, at Maryland on Thursday. So I think they can get to 9 wins. That's why I think they'll get to 10 wins. Says Gary's saying that 9-10 without making up the OSU away game. Yeah, I mean, that right now, that's what Gary says. 9-11 isn't tourney worthy. And again, it depends on the resume. I think 9-11, if you win a game or 2 in the Big Ten tournament, could still get you in. But we can get off that subject. Again, I understand it's early. We still got over a month of college basketball before we even talk about conference tournaments. But as of right now, I'd say Iowa is in. All Thumb says, please squash the talk that Joe T is going to transfer. Hopefully I did that. I think he's a team-first guy. Let's just wait and see what happens in the situation. Certainly, I don't want him to leave. And I don't have any reason right now to think he's planning on leaving. I just have no reason to think that. It's especially we're in the middle of a season right now. It's just one game, and he was starting up until now. Brian says, I'm okay with Jordan playing if he doesn't jack up threes from half court. All Thumbs says, did Iowa only have 3 turnovers? They had 6. That's a winning number, though. It's a big-time winning number. Gary says, hopefully there are no disciplinary issues around Joe T. Again, don't know anything unless it's internal. And I would not assume that. Certainly would not assume that. Charles, hats off to the Iowa defense the second half. Jared, good point here. Jared, Jamison Battle had 20 in the first game. 20 in the first game. So Keegan Murray held him. Let me get the final number for Battle. Man, Battle had 2 points, 1 of 12 shooting. It's a lottery pick right now, folks. I think Keegan Murray's a lottery pick right now. Absolutely stretch of winnable games coming up. Eric Doug says, let's give Billy Taylor some credit. Good halftime adjustments, absolutely. The Real Hayden says, anyone remember the last time Iowa won when Fran wasn't coaching? That's a good point. I don't remember the last time because you're right. Iowa typically doesn't win. I'd have to go back and trace those games where Fran was suspended, but I don't remember the last time Iowa won without him. They haven't played a ton of games without him, but when they have played, I think they've lost. Again, I have to look back at that. Brian says, yes, Ohio State has not lost at home. Charles gets the feeling we'll see a couple transfers. Again, let's wait and see on that. yeah, I don't think Perkins. I don't really see any reason why Perkins would leave. I mean, he did start tonight. Now, he played less minutes than maybe you'd expect for a starter. But Donna says, I don't think anyone should transfer. We need them all. Remember, they have another point guard coming in next year. Yep, DeSante Bowen will be coming in. So we'll see. Again, Joe T will be a senior. Aaron Eulis will be back, but Bohannon's gone. He's not coming back for year 7. Brad says J-Bo has had every chance to deliver and hasn't. Joe, back to the point. Sanford started at 2. Not going to happen, Brad. I'm not saying that I don't think it would be an interesting experiment. I don't think Fran has enough confidence right now in Sanford, but I understand where you're coming from. 3-point production is what they need, and although Sanford can launch and make threes, I think they're gonna roll the dice on Jordan. Jordan Samuelson says that he went back and watched the Penn State game. Says JT was not moving well without the ball. Made more sense why Eulis played in overtime over him, why he got benched today. Fran is an offensive coach. We can complain that he's not going to put up with a player not running the offense. Charles says our defense helped our transition game, which led to confident shots and not the other way around, as it seems since Big Ten play. Caleb will at worst be in the play-in. Yeah, still early. I know that Jerry Palm has had Iowa in that play-in game, but as of right now, I think they're in without the play-in game. That would be my guess. I'm sorry for the people who were not liking our talk about Auburn. I apologize for that, Brad. But I know Darrell MVP is a big SEC fan, and he's although he's not as high on Auburn now, that's for sure. Brad says students are not prioritized. Amen. That's right. I absolutely agree with that. They're not prioritized. I think putting them up and we've talked about this, behind the baskets all the way up to the rafters, to me is just not how you encourage. But again, the donors, the big payees right now, or payers, I should say, are the ones that are getting the best seats. I think there's a way you can work with both of them. I think Iowa needs to put a little bit more effort into it. That's my opinion. All right. Lemansky says, never take Izzo lightly. Yeah, I'm scared about getting that game in Iowa City. I don't have a ton of confidence in that one. What are the keys to beating Maryland on the road? Well, remember, Iowa did already beat Maryland. So, Maryland is a team. I think Iowa can out-rebound. I don't think that's a great rebounding team. I mean, I think I want to say Iowa out-rebounded them when they played them last. I have to look back at that. It's just a game Iowa should be able to win on the road. Remember, Fats Russell really played well when he came to Iowa City. And that's why I think Iowa's going to need Joe Toussaint on Thursday. I mean, we're going to either see a lot of Joe Toussaint, a lot of Eulis, or I think we're going to see a lot of easy layups and kicks for 3 for Maryland. I think that's going to be a huge storyline because of how well Fats Russell played against Iowa last time. You do not want Jordan Bohannon playing man-to-man defense on Fats Russell, and you do not want Iowa in zone most of the game. That is not going to get it done defensively. Iowa, I agree with what Gary has stated in the past, that Iowa seems to be at its best defensively when it's playing the man-to-man, and Jordan Bohannon is not going to be able to stay in front of Fats Russell consistently enough, and that is a fear. So I'm glad you brought this up, All Thumbs. I think Iowa needs to figure out a way to stick with the man-to-man, and I think the answer to that is it's probably more Joe Toussaint, more Aaron Eulis. But again, don't know what's going on with Joe Toussaint behind the scenes. Let's see here. I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody here in the chat. Hawkeye Howard, good to see you here this afternoon, sir. Eating ribeye steak. That sounds amazing. Eric says we do have a favorable schedule. Iowa has a favorable schedule coming up, and I've been saying that for quite a while. And Gary, yes, Virginia playing a little bit better now. Okay, but that right now, that is not even close to being a quad 1 win for Iowa. Not even close. Gary says, on paper, Iowa should sweep those Nebraska and Northwestern games. Evanston is another trappy road venue. Absolutely. And I understand this, Jordan. The narrative is Iowa tends to fade under Fran. I get that's the narrative, but the numbers bear out that that's not totally true. I think the numbers, though, let's talk about March, Jordan. If you talk about March, Iowa has, I think Fran has about a 33, I want to say it's like a 300 record, or close to about a 300 record in the Big Ten tournament. That's not good. Certainly, we know Iowa has not gotten to the Sweet 16 under Fran. You're right about the narrative is honestly, it's wrong. If you look at the records from recent years, and I think a lot of fans are remembering some of the Utah Woodbury Gasell years where Iowa tend to struggle late, or the end of Devin Marble's career. Iowa did sort of fade late, but that is kind of stuck, and it's probably not fair to Jordan Bohannon. Greg says, is the 6'11" guy from London, you're talking about Josh Ogundele, too much of a liability to play once in a while against teams with taller centers? He has played, Greg, against those teams, right? We saw him against Purdue. We saw him against Illinois. Certainly, they're not comfortable with him right now. I think that's clear. And the thing about it is, Greg, besides Michigan, they do play Michigan twice. They don't have a lot of big guys left. I mean, is it Qudus Wahab for Maryland is going to be a challenge, but I don't see them turning to Mulvey or Ogundele if they don't have to, even against Wahab, who played well against Iowa last time out. Maryland is an interesting matchup, though. And again, Iowa beat them already, but that's going to be a tricky game on Thursday. It's a very interesting matchup. Yes, they do get Kofi Coburn again. That's true. They do get them on the road early March. Donna says we can get all those wins. I think we can do it. Yep. Again, 3 wins, including tonight, and then possibly a bonus 4th if you can win against Michigan. But you get Maryland on the road, you get Northwestern at home, and you get Michigan at home. They get 3 straight games at home. They get Michigan, Michigan State, Northwestern, is it Northwestern or Nebraska? I think it was Nebraska, actually. So the schedule coming up: Maryland on the road, Nebraska at home, Michigan at home, Michigan State at home, and then Nebraska on the road. So they don't get Nebraska at home this year. Or excuse me, they do get Nebraska at home. What am I thinking? I just read that off. So they get, Maryland on the road, Nebraska at home, Michigan at home, Michigan State at home, and then Nebraska on the road. That's a really doable stretch. Tanner, Iowa is 25 in the net. If Iowa just wins the games they're supposed to, they're firmly in. Absolutely. And if they win the games they're supposed to win, Tanner, they'll end up 10-10. Or better, 10-10 at the minimum, if they do that. Vincent says, based on what we've seen thus far, Iowa will play their way out of the tournament. Corey, sorry to already burst the bubble. All right. Well, you stick by that, Vincent. We can agree to disagree completely on that. Eric says he thinks Keegan stays. Okay. Well, I don't see it at this point, but, anything's possible. We saw Garza stay for next year, but Garza was never projected as a lottery pick. And yes, Indiana. That's going to be Indiana and Utah State. Those are the two, and they're both close right now. They're both they're fringe quad 1 wins. You don't want them to fall down to quad 2 wins. I still think, regardless, Iowa gets in at 10-10. I keep saying it, but certainly if those can stay as quad 1 wins, that will certainly help. All right, so let me run through the final stats here for anybody who's just logging on. Keegan Murray, 24 points, 15 boards, held Minnesota's best player transfer, Jamison Battle, to 2 points. He was spectacular. I'm talking about Keegan Murray. Spectacular tonight with 24 and 15 on the offensive end. Patrick McCaffrey, 18.7 boards. Aaron Eulis, 9 points, 5 boards, 2 assists. We know the storyline. Tony Perkins starting in place of Joe Toussaint. Bohannon plays the point. Of course, Eulis played a lot of minutes as well. I think Fran's just trying to figure out, and yes, I know Billy Taylor coached, but Fran's behind these lineup changes. He's just trying to figure out the best lineups right now to create shot making. And it is frustrating for a guy like Toussaint who's playing hard defensively, but he's not a threat offensively. I think that's the bottom line right now. This is going to win you games almost every time out. To only turn the ball over. Now, Minnesota did pretty well protecting the ball on the road. But to only turn the ball over 6 times, it's just going to be hard to lose games if you're protecting the ball that well. And to be completely honest, Minnesota, 12 is probably typically on the road. 12 is going to be a winning number, but not when you're playing a team that turns the ball over at half that rate. So Iowa right now protecting the ball well, and I thought they were doing that with Joe Toussaint. So turnovers are not the issue right now with Joe Toussaint. Perhaps it is something mental, something going on behind the scenes. Don't want to speculate on that, but again, we just don't know at this point. All right. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything else here. I think we're good. Of course, we don't know when the Ohio State game is going to be made up. So as of right now, the schedule is Iowa versus Maryland on Thursday. All right, Thursday the 10th, 6 p.m. Central Time. It'll be on ESPN2. No Dan Dockich, right? He's not ESPN anymore. So we can thank our lucky stars for that. If you have not already subscribed to this channel, please do so. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers. Tell your friends about the show. And, of course, we're here after each and every Iowa men's basketball game and here throughout the off seasons for Iowa football and basketball coverage. Appreciate Gary Close, Coach Gary Close, joining us earlier today. We will talk to you after Iowa, Maryland, Thursday night from Washington, D.C. Take care.